Hey, Keto Freaks. Here's an update on Keto Fest. We have a date, the weekend of July 15th and 16th, 2017. Keto Fest is a ketogenic festival for everyone, not just doctors and nutritionists. Richard Morris and I, along with a host of keto rock stars, are turning the entire coastal town of New London, Connecticut, ketogenic the entire weekend of July 15 and 16. Some of the best minds in keto have already said they want to come and speak, including Jimmy Moore, Megan Ramos, Ivor Cummins, Dr. Jeff Gerber, Dr. Eric Westman, and Dr. Ted Naiman. We'll have an outdoor food festival with live music, fitness lessons, cooking lessons, walking tours, bike tours, Segway tours, movies on the historic Guard Theater's 60-foot screen, and of course, great talks by our rock stars. We'll be doing a Kickstarter campaign soon to sell tickets. Meantime, go to ketofest.com and register. Keto Fest, real keto for real people. Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes. This is Carl Franklin from Connecticut in the United States. And in February of 2016, I put myself on a ketogenic diet to take control of my metabolism. In just 2.5 months, I managed to reverse all my markers of type 2 diabetes with diet alone. As of now, I'm 80 pounds lighter with no signs of diabetes or heart disease.
Hi, I'm Richard Morris in Canberra, Australia. Actually, I'm not in Canberra, Australia
right
now.
Yeah, you're sitting right across from me.
I'm actually in New London, Connecticut now. And I've been on a ketogenic diet now for almost 3 years. When I started, I was very sick with complications from type 2 diabetes. And within 6 months of starting a ketogenic diet, all of my biomarkers of disease had disappeared.
Yeah.
I've also lost about 80 pounds, and I've completely turned my health around.
And this show is both a document of my progress through ketosis and Richard's experience thriving for 3 years in ketosis.
Yeah.
And hopefully that might help a few people who are curious about this kind of dietary hacking.
Yeah, we're not doctors. We don't want to give anyone any medical advice, but we are keen to share our own experiences. We're actually both software developers, so we're not afraid of a little technical detail, are we, Carl?
Nah.
And we've done some research into our own deranged metabolisms and the science behind that. We hope to share some of that research. Where possible, we intend to put links in the show notes to cite research supporting any claims that we make.
And you'll probably work out pretty quickly that we're both foodies.
Sure are.
We love to cook and we love to eat.
Mm-hmm.
In every episode, we both share a keto recipe that cannot be ignored.
Cannot.
All right, so let's continue. Sitting Down with Gary Fettke, Part 2. So, Richard, do we have any corrections or apologies from last week?
No, I think Dr. Fettke got it all perfectly right.
Yeah, he did. And last week's show, we cut off just about halfway through, maybe a little further than halfway through.
Yeah.
And in this show, he's going to continue talking about the complications from type 2 diabetes.
Right.
All right, so let's revisit what a ketogenic diet is. A ketogenic diet is any diet that puts you into a state of nutritional ketosis, meaning your insulin is low enough that your liver is allowed to burn body fat for fuel, the byproduct of which is ketones and fatty acids, and that's becomes your source of energy.
Right.
So the easiest way to do it is what we follow, is eat 20 grams or less of carbohydrates per day, incidental carbs, from green leafy vegetables or nuts, that kind of thing.
And that forces your body to become good at burning fat because you're not giving it glucose to burn, so it has to become good at burning fat.
Exactly. And we want to have moderate protein, 1 to 1.5 grams of protein for every kilogram of lean body mass.
Yeah.
Some people even do less protein, such as Richard Morris.
I have done, yes.
Yeah. And everything else comes from fat, either the fat on your plate or the fat from that Krispy Kreme you ate a decade ago.
I love that Krispy Kreme. I've been dining out on it for at least a decade.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, how was your week, Richard? But we told everybody how our week was. But we really talked about the week in Breckenridge.
Right.
Let's talk about the week in New London.
Yeah, we might actually do a whole show on New London because we've done some really fascinating things here. But because what we're doing is we're getting ready for Keto Fest.
Right.
We're going to turn the whole of New London ketogenic for a weekend. And Carl and I have been going to all of the different venues, talking to the locals and going to some of the restaurants and some of the nightclubs, and it's fascinating to walk into one of these with Carl Franklin because we walked into one last night and it was hopping. They had a funk band and they were really jumping. They were jumping.
Andre and Eddie.
And Andre, basically the lead singer, just calls out Carl Franklin in the house as Carl walks through the front door. So he is definitely a local celebrity here.
Yeah, as a musician, which is
great.
Great.
Right. Nobody knows you as a computer programmer here.
That's right. Yeah, the same thing, right? Yeah.
Right.
Nobody knows that I'm the keto guy, and nobody knows that I'm a computer programmer. They think of me as the guitar player.
I think they're about to learn that you're the keto guy because we're going to turn this entire town ketogenic for a weekend. We've spoken to the mayor. We've spoken to the movie cinema. We've got everybody on board.
And the chefs are very excited about this.
Yeah. We spoke to a chef last night and we were saying to him, the only thing you have to do with ketogenic food is don't use any starches and sugars and use as much fat as you want. And he went, really?
Well, his first reaction was, oh, yeah, cooking light. Yeah, I can do that. And I said, no. You got to – here's the thing. Chefs love to cook with fat.
Right. That's where the flavor is.
That's where the flavor is. Yeah. And his eyes lit up when he's like, really? I have no restrictions on fat? Right. No. Nor do you have restrictions on, salty, umami flavors.
Right.
And so, yeah, they're going to love it.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing. And we've been also filming the video for the Kickstarter campaign for Keto Fest, which is coming up.
We have? Yeah.
Well, that brings us to...
Mail! It's actually really nice to be doing it in the same room.
In real time, yeah.
Normally I'm in Australia and Carl is in Connecticut and we have to deal with line of sight issues and international delays and all that. But this is fun.
It is.
So I have a message today from Glyn Hardy, and this was via Facebook Messenger. And he says, morning, buddy, I've got a question for the podcast. Sorry I've not asked via the forum, but I've got no IT skills at all. Sorry about that, Glenn. So he says, I've been LCHF for 18 months. I do Monday to Friday, IF, which is intermittent fasting, only eating between 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. But on the weekend, I do drink beer. I used to put on about 8 pounds of water weight that would be gone by the following Friday morning. So he says, I'm down 60 pounds in total, but now I just don't put on any more than about 2 pounds over the weekend. I'm not complaining, I just don't understand why I'm not retaining water. I would love to hear more about this. Maybe you have an explanation for what's happening.
Interesting.
Yeah. So my first suggestion is beer is no good.
Yeah, unless you live in Australia and you can get Big Head beer.
Yeah, I got a case of zero-carb beer in Australia and brought it with me to Breckenridge, and it was snuck inside one of my bags, and we were sharing it with everybody because you just cannot get zero-carb beer in America.
Nope.
And so if you can get access to that, Glenn, that is awesome. But you may only be able to get that in Australia.
Yeah, you might want to try bourbon or scotch or vodka. And what do you drink? Rum and Diet Coke?
Yeah,
that's popular.
I drink rum and diet often.
Yeah.
So, and you can get that at just about any bar. Megan Ramos, who we interviewed when we were in Breckenridge, and that podcast is upcoming, she suggests when you hit a plateau to change things up a bit because your body ends up adapting to what you're doing and becoming comfortable with it.
Right. If you're doing anything on a regular schedule, like every day you're doing IF between 3 and 6, after a while, your body's going to say, okay, I expect this, and so things just start happening and compensating for it. But if you do a few days of, eating as much as you possibly want
feasting.
and as possibly can, feasting, and then stop and fast for a couple days, your body will burn your body fat at the same rate that it was stoked. You're stoking a fire when you feast.
Yeah.
And then when you fast after feasting...
You're using it.
Yeah, you're using it. Your metabolism is really high, and you really chow down on body fat.
Yeah.
And then switch it up again.
doing a couple days of IF, maybe a couple more days of feasting, fasting again for a couple days.
Sure.
And this is what I've been doing since I got back from Breckenridge.
Yeah.
And it works. I'm losing weight again.
Yeah. The other thing you could do with changing it up is just skip the beer and go straight to hard liquor.
Right.
That's one way to change it up.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about, bourbon or scotch or rum and diet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good advice, Glenn. We hope you get back on track there. And thanks for reaching out to us. Now we're going to continue our conversation with the great Gary Fettke, which we recorded in Breckenridge, Colorado a couple of weeks ago. And this is where he starts talking about complications from type 2 diabetes.
I know when I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I was given material for training me how to eat now that I was now a type 2 diabetic, which included 304 grams of glucose equivalent per day. And I remember making I basically worked out how many teaspoons of sugar that was. And it's like 76 teaspoons of sugar in a day to somebody who is unable to safely metabolize sugar.
Diabetes is an inability to metabolize the glucose load that your body is presented with.
Yes.
That's it. It doesn't matter if it's type 2, type 1. It is still an inability. You can argue about, the cause of it. So whatever I present you with, you cannot metabolize it. So you're effectively allergic to it.
Yeah.
So if you've got a kid with a nut allergy, would you give them peanuts and then an adrenaline pen?
No.
Right.
Oh, it's the dumbest thing. Okay?
That's really great.
So if you've got an allergy to carbohydrate and glucose, I'm not allowed to swear here, am I?
Yeah, you can.
Why would you give it to them?
Wait. Let me get this straight.
Hey, look, you're allergic to carbohydrate. Here, have this carbohydrate and now take this medication to try and handle the load we've just got. But when we give you the insulin, it's going to make you fat.
Yeah.
My doctor's answer was people just want to take a pill. They want to eat their garbage and take a pill. And that's why they don't succeed on,
but this is where the medical practitioners
throw their patients under the bus.
They haven't been educated, but this is not new. This is management of diabetes before insulin. It was the management of diabetes to restrict sugar and carbohydrate as recently as 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And somehow the guidelines and everything has just crept in a wave of apathy from the medical profession, and we can do better. We can do better.
Absolutely.
But we have to take that responsibility because at the moment we just tell patients, this is an incurable disease of which you're progressively going to get worse and you're going to be a chronic patient of mine. Thank you very much. We're going to keep prescribing medications and ultimately you're going to get kidney disease, you're going to lose your vision. You're going to get impotent guys.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That's all part of the disseminated vascular disease, isn't it?
That's right. It's the first symptom. One of the earliest symptoms of having cardiovascular disease and heart attacks for males is impotence.
Yeah.
And we've got to chase that pathway.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
Well, being over here, coming across to Breckenridge and catching up with what I call the extended team's great. We had dinner. You're well aware that Belinda has taken over my social media presence.
Yes.
And she said she's taken it to another height because she's much more skilled. So it's now Belinda Fettke, no fructose. But I'm back on Twitter, and this whole thing is too big. It's too important. What the criticism from AHPRA was, that I didn't declare my doctor-patient relationship in every social media response.
Same thing they tried to lay on Tim Noakes.
Yeah.
Like there's a doctor-patient relationship in a tweet.
But I've said, the doctor-patient relationship has not been defined in media, either print media, electronic, visual, social. And we've had liaison with the AMA. It's not under the national law. The Medical Council haven't ruled on it. So here we are, the law's being made up as it's going along.
Yeah.
And in a tweet, you don't have the ability to, exclude everything. But every single personal patient, every patient I know is, and I've got a stamp that I put in the notes, essentially declaring, conflict of interest. But as it's turned out, we've never made a cent out of it. We never will. And, it's something run independently from us. And it's the team doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking out. I'm testing the boundaries.
Yeah.
Because, no one's defined who's actually going to keep an eye on me.
Yeah.
Right.
No one's defined anything. Have I given you individual medical advice today? I don't think so.
Not yet.
Nothing we haven't already known.
That's right. I mean, I'm just saying, look, you're allergic to carbohydrate. You've told me you've got type 2 diabetes.
Yeah. Right.
You're allergic to carbohydrate. Well, why don't you,
Why don't you try not eating that?
not eating it?
Yeah.
Particularly when you've got a hybrid engine.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You can either put petrol or diesel in your engines.
Yeah. But your petrol leaks when you fill the tank. So why don't you use gas instead or diesel? Yeah.
Well, if you've got a petrol, do you ever put a little bit of petrol in your diesel engine? Just a little bit each time? A little bit won't hurt, will it?
Yeah. Moderation, a little petrol in moderation.
A little bit.
Moderately poisoned. I've heard that one today.
And then, is it any surprise now that your engine's in strife?
Right.
So as a health system, we're now spending all of our money servicing the car when we really should find out it's going to be a hell of a lot more effective if we just paid a bit more attention to what fuel we put
Just
in
a
the
little
tank.
maintenance, yeah.
When do you think we're going to see the tipping point? Is it going to take a revolution? Is it going to take...
No, I don't think so. I talk about committed sardines. Have you heard me talk about this?
No, I haven't. No.
And it's a biological term, and it's related to the fact that a school of fish can turn around 180 degrees like that.
Yeah.
And they can do it, bang. Now, a school of sardines can get to the size of a sperm whale, but a sperm whale to turn 180 degrees takes 3 or 4 minutes, apparently.
Sure.
So at any point in time in this school of fish, the school of sardines, there are some fish that are a bit agitated on the outside, swimming in the opposite direction, a bit more alert to danger and change. And so at a tipping point, they turn the whole school around. And the percentage is about 3%.
Wow.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
So it's not 30%, it's not 50%. So, you guys talk about the rule of, you do it, tell another 2,
Right.
another 2.
Yeah.
That 3% can't be that far away.
Yeah,
Now, I was speaking
right.
to Andreas Einfeld
Einfeld,
about it.
Yeah.
and-
Andreas,
Yes.
Andreas Einfeld.
Einfeld.
Yeah, from
Diet Doctor.
Yeah.
And I was... If
just
you
want to
do,
make it clear for
yeah,
everybody.
sorry. And if you do Google Trends and you look up LCHF, and on the international map it goes Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Andres, you've got your 3%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They've essentially flipped the food pyramid.
Yes.
Government has.
If you then do Google Trends and do LCHF and you search Australia, and state by state, Tasmania. So in our community, particularly northern Tasmania, the concept of sugar and carbs is now topical.
Yes.
And you can go to a restaurant and ask for a low-carb meal and not be looked upon like an idiot.
Yeah.
I did a bit of locum work in Queensland last year, just exploring possibilities. You never know what's going to happen.
Sure.
And
I'm a Queenslander, so
yeah,
it's a great place to...
We were in the sugar belt, which was actually
dear.
a bit... I was hiding in the
From
sugar
the
belt.
Apple Isle to the Sugar Belt.
Yeah, but, nofructose.com was actually hiding in it. And there's a great picture of Belinda. She's taken me hiding in the sugar cane. And with all due respect to it, no idea.
Yeah.
It is just a foreign concept, which means I realise how far we still have to go.
Yes.
But in my community, in our community, we think we're making a difference and we've created market penetration. Have we gotten to 3%? I don't know, but we're not that far away. And this is what you guys are doing.
It's a bit different than telling people about it. I mean, what we're doing is showing everybody by example what we've done.
Yeah.
And that is the most powerful agent for change.
Yeah.
I've seen it ripple through my friends, for example, personal friends, not just online friends, but personal friends.
Well, except you lead by example by yourself. I have often a lot of parents used to when I was on social media, but Belinda will do it now. So what do I do? My children won't do it, and do what we do. We lead by example, and the kids go, "Oh, okay," and they come on board. And around in the community, you lead by example, and people will say, "Well, ultimately, they'll go, when the time is ripe, they'll go, tell me about it."
Right.
And then you can start giving them the tools and when they want to. A bit like when people want to give up smoking, they will give it up when the time's right.
You said at dinner tonight that you're not down on anybody who's vegan, paleo, whatever, vegisexual, it doesn't really matter. Because they're taking...
Vegisexual.
Yeah, because that's what Bloom County term, because they're taking charge, or they're interested in their health, and that's the first step.
I may not agree with the path they're doing, but once people become invested in their health, then I've got a heap of time and empathy for them.
Yeah.
But I'm also known for not being particularly tolerant. So if you're sitting there 100 kilos overweight, completely unmotivated, into the junk food, smoking like a chimney, and you say, make me better, doctor, well, you might find my other side.
Yeah.
In a polite, professional sense.
Sure.
But I say, once your
I don't
people...
blame you.
But we ultimately, we are all responsible. But if you've given the right tools and the right education, then you can start making those decisions.
Yeah. Well, I think giving people like that hope is the first step. I mean, because that's, you obviously, if you're in a state like that, you've given up on yourself.
I call it a deep, dark well. Yeah. And I talk about some pillars of health. Don't know how we're going for time, but the pillars of health are nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, communication, and genetics. And you can't do much about your genetics. No.
Right.
Stress, a lot of people got heaps of stress, and I mean, I've got some thoughts about that, but it's hard for people to change stress. The sleep.
Which is a big problem for me. My circadian rhythms are horrible. So
yeah, I sleep well.
Okay.
I do now.
Getting the right amount of exercise is a bit of a trick. Communication, I think we communicate, and podcasting, social media, that whole connectivity is important.
I agree.
Nutrition is one thing that you can actually do something about today.
Yeah.
And I say, look, it's like, here's a ladder. I've just dropped a ladder into the deep dark well. You can put one foot on it and you can take a choice. And with diabetes, that you can actually reverse your diabetes within 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah, no, you can start to see a change in your diabetes control within hours.
Oh, sure, because of the sugar response.
So you can either choice having that huge pizza or having eggs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And letting your liver look after your glucose requirements.
So literally 2 hours later, you've gotten control of your blood glucose. I mean, that's unheard of, isn't it?
Right.
You have the ability to start changing your health outcome within hours and see the result.
There's another difference between the low-carb, healthy fat way of life and any other quote-unquote diet that anyone's ever been on, and that is that, at least for me, every diet that I tried, every attempt that I made to make myself healthier, it seemed to get, it was easy when I had confidence at first, and then it got more and more and more and more difficult. And so I think that people have this thought that when they go on this, if they adapt this healthy way of life, that it's going to get harder and harder. In fact, it's the opposite. Yeah. It's hardest that first day. The second day may be a little bit more difficult because now you're changing habits. But as you go on, don't you agree? It gets easier and easier.
I was that fat kid. I've been on all those fad diets for 20, 30 years. I was always paying attention to what I'm eating. The trouble with diets, and I hate the word diet,
it's true.
because you will fail on a diet because you think you're restricting yourself. And then when you fail on a diet, you're told that you're a failure.
That's right.
It's your fault. Fail. Whereas here, this is about empowering people to get back to eating real food, which is fabulous, and they see the benefits. They feel the benefits.
Yeah.
And so for me, as a doctor, this is a fabulous tool. And I've been chatting to doctors here this week about the fact that they, and doctors back at home, where they feel as though they've been practicing bad medicine, they haven't been helping their patients. They're jaded. They're in their 40s to 50s, 60s, and they're just serving time in medicine. And yet now these doctors, David Unwin, he just gave his great story, and he just won that National NHS Innovator Award. Yeah.
What a remarkable speech he gave, really.
He's got the NHS Innovator of the Year Award for doing exactly the same thing, which I'm getting
panned for.
I've asked David for that award. Can I have a photocopy of it? And but he is excited to go to work. He said, I want those patients with diabetes to come back that I wanted to get rid of before.
He rescinded his retirement.
Yes.
He was enjoying his life, his life as a doctor so much.
He said it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just
and that's
much
what
fun.
my life is fun. Apart from all the stuff going on in the background,
Right.
the ability to help people, and particularly beyond my practice, is awesome.
I can see your motivation, and
Totally.
I mean, it's got to be the motivation for people getting into medicine in the first place is to help people. And what a horrible thing to be in a situation where you can't. And in a
I also mentor quite a few young doctors who are stating that. They've gone into medicine to help people. And yet we've got a sick health system. It's not health system is wrong, it's a sick system. And all you're doing is band-aiding people. We just sort of go, here's some more medication. We're servicing the vehicle. We're not getting back to the maintenance. And there's an enormous dropout rate of young doctors now. Belinda was just chatting to someone who we've known since she was in high school, and she's pretty well couldn't continue on in the medical system, and now she's found a role within CrossFit.
right. Okay.
Wow.
But she's excited because now she's engaged with people who are really going for it, engaged in their health outcomes, and she's excited again. Many young doctors are disenchanted with where medicine is, and I think it's because it's this band-aid mentality, and as a society we're getting fatter and sicker, and there's this feeling of hopelessness. And what nutrition has given me that enthusiasm to say, hang on, this is something really good, which is worth trying.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? It doesn't cost anything. Give it a go for 8 weeks, 12 weeks. You make your own mind up. And patients, the average person, the person on the street doesn't care about a double-blind controlled study.
No, you're right.
They're interested in what you guys have done. What my friend's done that. They're healthier. I'll give that a crack.
Yeah.
And whether or not they do a little bit or a lot, we're all relative hardcore here, but not everyone has to be hardcore.
Right.
If the majority of the people got back to eating real food, and I know that sounds really simple.
It is actually.
Then avoid the sugars, the processed foods, the polyunsaturated oils. If the majority of people just got back to doing that, we'll be so much healthier.
Dr. Ted Naiman told us that he likes to make it really easy for his patients. His diabetic patient says, go eat bacon and eggs for 2 weeks and come back and see me.
But he would have said it a lot quicker than that.
Go eat bacon and eggs for 2 weeks.
He's great. He's great.
Well,
been able to catch up with Ted. Yeah.
It's been such an honor to have you on our show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I feel really humbled by the fact that word. It's Belinda and I are just doing what we need to do.
Yeah.
We're doing what we call the right thing. I'm not that nice a guy, okay?
Neither am I. I'm really not.
But this is the right thing
help
to
a lot of
do,
people.
And it's an exciting journey. The kids said, all this stress and whatever. No, it's exciting. It's exciting, to actually truly understand exciting. You would have highs and lows.
Yeah.
So but it's good.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary.
No, thank you guys.
All right.
Wow, that whole experience of, first of all, having Gary and Belinda for dinner.
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
And just being able
Lovely people.
Yeah, just being able to talk to them like regular people was just so amazing. And we're very honored to, as I said, to have Gary on our podcast. This is really kind of a scoop. He really hasn't talked about it since the censure.
Yeah, and he's been prevented from talking about it. So
Right.
it's quite an honor that he chose to talk about this on our podcast.
Yeah.
Very grateful.
And we're all behind you, Gary.
Absolutely.
All of our listeners and Richard and I, of course, and all your low-carb friends.
Yeah.
And that brings us to...
Recipes!
Recipes!
Oh, yes. So I'm going to go first with another recipe from Dr. Lou. This is also from Breckenridge.
Yep.
And Dr. Lou, that's Louise Reynolds, made a Polish cheesecake for us.
Yeah.
And it was delicious.
Oh, my gosh. And it took many forms, didn't it?
Yeah, she made some in cupcakes. She made an entire cake at one point. So the base of the recipe actually comes from Libby at ditchthecarbs.com.
Oh, interesting.
And you can find the entire recipe on the ketogenic forums. But we like to call out whenever we take portions of a recipe from somewhere else and modify it. So anyway, the base from this recipe, as I said, comes from Libby at ditchthecarbs.com. And the recipe goes 3 tablespoons of granulated stevia, or your sweetener of choice.
Yeah, sure.
And 110 grams, or about half a cup, or approximately a stick of softened butter. And a teaspoon of vanilla, an egg, 100 grams or 3.5 ounces, approximately a cup of almond meal or flour, almond flour. And 56 grams, about 2 ounces or about half a cup of coconut flour. A teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and the filling is going to be 900 grams of higher fat, smooth, creamy cheese, Philly or quark or mascarpone, and about 150 grams of sour cream, 270 grams of sweetener, 2 tablespoons of almond flour meal, finely grated zest of a lemon or an orange. In Breckenridge, we had an orange. It was delicious.
Yeah, it was great.
And just the zest. We threw away the orange pulp because we don't need
Who needs that?
Yeah, we don't need all that glucose and fructose. So we also have 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 4 medium eggs plus 2 yolks. And so to prepare the base, we take a large pie, flan, quiche dish, it could be a Pyrex glass dish, and you prepare it by rubbing butter on the bottom and sides. So that's really greasing it up. And then you line it with baking paper. And you mix stevia, softened butter, and vanilla until smooth. Add egg, almonds, coconut flour, salt, and cinnamon, and mix until it's the consistency of a smooth peanut paste or peanut butter. Yeah. So then you smooth this mixture into the prepared baking dish and bake at 180 Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit for 10 minutes until just starting to go golden. And then you prepare the filling. So again, like Brenda's pecan pie, make the base first. Cook it, let it go cool, and then we're going to make the filling. So the filling is going to be cream cheese, sour cream, sugar substitute, flour, zest, and vanilla, blended until smooth. Then we beat in the eggs one at a time, and finally the egg yolks until everything is mixed through. Then we smooth the mixture in the pan, tap it gently down on the countertop to remove any trapped air bubbles, and smooth the top with a spatula. And then we're going to reduce the oven temperature to 150 Celsius, which is about 300 Fahrenheit, or gas mark 2, and we bake it for 75 to 90 minutes until risen in the centre and slightly golden around the edge. Remove from the oven, leave until cold, and then chill in the fridge until firm before removing it from the pan and running a sharp knife around the edges. So
what's interesting about this recipe is it's basically a cheesecake recipe. The only difference is you're substituting sweetener.
Yeah.
You know?
I would make sure to let it go cool before carving it because otherwise it's not going to hold its edges.
Yeah, and that you have to do that with a sugary cheesecake as well.
Right.
You really do have to chill it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So that's my recipe. So what have you got, Carl?
What have I got? I've got Brenda Zorn's pork rind pancakes and or waffles. That's what I've got.
Remember that? The first morning
in
Breckenridge. Brenda said, "I'm making waffles," and I thought she was quoting from Shrek. Boy, they were good.
Oh, they were amazing. So here's the deal. I mean, you basically use pork rinds as your flour base for pancakes or waffles.
Wow.
So what you need is 1 cup of crushed pork rinds, which is about 1.5 ounces. Not dust consistency, but crushed like coarse breadcrumbs. Then you need 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, 2 large beaten eggs, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a teaspoon of cinnamon. And of course, if you want to add any other spices like nutmeg or something, you can do that as well. So you mix all the ingredients together and you let it sit a few minutes to thicken. And then, just use it like you would use pancakes or waffles. You fry about 1/4 cup of batter in a hot greased pan. She uses coconutty tasting coconut oil, which is super yummy.
Sure is.
You want to use medium heat. They don't bubble up around the edges like traditional pancakes, and check after a minute or two and flip when brown. And of course, she put them into a waffle iron.
Right, which we had in the house in Breckenridge. We sort of found it that night and thought, ooh, we should do something with that.
The only thing I might have done differently, and I didn't need it, but maybe a little baking powder just to make them rise a little bit. But they didn't. Yeah. I don't think they needed it.
No, they were fluffy.
They were
delicious.
Fluffy.
And we just had them with a smear of butter and some sugar-free maple syrup.
Yeah, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
And I hadn't made low-carb waffles or pancakes in a long time, and I really enjoyed them.
Yeah,
Yep.
So did I. That was delicious.
Yep. And, well, we hope you enjoyed this two-part series with Gary Fettke, and I certainly did. And as I said just a few minutes ago, it was a real honor to have Gary on our show.
It was.
And hopefully we'll be talking to him again soon.
Yeah, of course, if you have anything that you want to tell us, something we said wrong, something you don't agree with, or some more research that you found to support or refute anything we've said, send it by email to dudes@twoketodudes.com or post it on our website.
Yep. And you can follow us on Twitter at 2KetoDudes, on Instagram at 2KetoDudes, and of course, if you want to join our forum, it's www.ketogenicforums.com or forum.2keto.com.
Yeah.
And if useless swag is your fancy, T-shirts, coffee mugs, and other junk with witty keto sayings on it, head over to gear.2keto.com.
And if you feel like supporting our podcast and our forums, hit the donate button on our website at www.2ketodudes.com or just go to donate.2keto.com. You can also see our podcast and other videos on YouTube at youtube.2keto.com.
All right, that's a show, man. Keep calm and keto on.
Yeah, keep calm and keto on, Carl.
All right, and we'll see you next time on
2 Keto Dudes.